Grief is something most people are not comfortable with. Whether you are a friend, family member, or coworker of a person that is in grief, it can be hard to know what to say and what to do. And I get asked a lot, how can I help them? So in this video, I'm going to tell you. Before we begin, we post death and dying later videos every Friday. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's talk helping someone in grief. I'm going to preface this video by saying not everything I mention here is going to work for every situation. It will depend on your relationship with the person, how well you know them, what's appropriate. It will depend on what sort of death it was. Was it expected or sudden? And who was it that died? Their child, partner, grandparent, friend. How someone grieves and therefore what support they need depends on all of this. For example, someone's grandparent dying of Alzheimer's is going to affect someone differently than someone's child dying from suicide. So we will err on the side of heavier grief, for lack of a better word, and you use your intuition, common sense, whatever, to work out what fits for the situation you find yourself in. Okay, let's go. Help is needed longer than you think. We've said this many times on this channel, but grief does not simply last between the day of death and the funeral. The initial part of grief often goes for the better part of a year. People are inundated by sympathy during that first week or so, often to the point where it gets quite irritating. But there is a lot to do during that time, including organising the funeral. So often you have the initial shock of the death, where you are numb, combined with having a task to complete, so often that your grief hasn't set in yet. It's like when you break a bone and your body hits you with that adrenaline so you aren't feeling much pain, but once that goes, that pain is about to kick your ass. That's why you need people around in the following months. And I mention this because so many people know it is the socially acceptable thing to do to give your sympathies, perhaps show up at the funerals, send a once-off text message saying, "I'm here if you need me." But quite frankly, they are only doing it because they feel they have to. And the month afterwards is kind of like the bystander effect. I'm sure someone else will intervene, but everyone thinks that, so no one does. If you are a real mate, real family, turn up for them. It is in the months, the year after the death, when they would need you the most. Treat them as you usually would. In situations like this, people often start treading on eggshells and start with this odd, softly spoken voice. Stop it! Yes, you need to take the situation into consideration. The person is not going to be upbeat or talkative as usual, but completely changing the way you interact with them is not helpful. They have just had a great loss. This is a significant change to their normal. They don't need anything else to change. You need to keep your usual relationship style with them to provide them with the comfort and reassurance while they readjust to the new normal. So if your friendship is full of banter and taking the piss, continue that. If you regularly send each other funny memes, continue that. If you and your mate are die-hard footy fans, continue that. You get the idea. Don't try and fix things. Unless their washing machine has just decided to pack it in, we're not trying to problem solve here. And this is hard for many people to wrap their minds around. When someone who is grieving is crying or venting or asking out loud, "What do I do now?" they are not looking for you to solve the problem. They are asking you to listen and acknowledge how they feel. That's it. And by immediately going into problem-solving mode, they don't feel like you've been listening. They don't feel like their feelings have been acknowledged, and that is failing them. Practical help. If someone says, "Reach out if you need anything," to someone in grief, it kind of translates to, "For the love of God, don't ask me to do anything, but fine, I will say you can so I don't look like a cow." There's just no point in saying it. You are asking someone in their most vulnerable time to have it together enough to know what they need and to be assertive enough to reach out and ask. If they could do that, they wouldn't need your help, would they? But aside from that, practical things that you could help with include meal prep, grocery shopping, watching the kids while they make plans for the funeral or go to a therapy appointment, make phone calls, do laundry, pick up the kids' toys. Now, obviously, you need to have a certain type of relationship to do these kinds of things. Doing someone's laundry, for example, may be a bit personal for some people. But there are small things that those that are close, but not that close, can do. If you are over at their place and you've got the kettle on, give the countertop a bit of a wipe down. When you go to the bathroom, look under the sink for cleaning supplies and give the sink a bit of a clean and the toilet a scrub. Or while they're having a shower, take the bins out. Even small things can go a long way. And while we don't want to go into gendered stereotypes here, but if your mate has died and his widow is struggling, go over to her place and mow the lawn or take their teenage son out for the day. It may be very much appreciated. Yes, at other times she's a strong, independent woman, but grief is a bitch. Similarly, if your friend has just died and her husband is struggling, a homemade meal or helping with the baby may be very much appreciated. Yes, he's a fully functioning adult who can do those things, but not in this vulnerable, overwhelming time. Again, adjustment to a new normal and new routine takes time and help. Acknowledge the elephant in the room. Now, in some cultures, saying the deceased person's name out loud is inappropriate. However, the loss can still be acknowledged. Some people will just avoid acknowledging that anything is different, that there's been a loss at all. How is that in any way helpful to the person grieving? You don't have to bang on about it, but you should at least acknowledge the existence of the situation. Along with that, encouraging the person to reminisce about the deceased person can actually be very beneficial. Take the dog for a walk. I know this seems like such an oddly specific thing to mention, but with good reason. When someone is deep in grief, particularly in the initial stages, they may not be thinking clearly. Often their regular routine goes out the window and they're dealing with many things that they have never dealt with before. And as much as everyone loves their pets and they in no way mean to neglect them, in these initial deep stages, Fido may require some outside help. Our pets pick up on our feelings. And if we're upset, especially for a long period of time, their little peanut brains also tend to suffer. They are also likely to be confused as to why a member of their family is now missing. So if you live nearby, taking the dog for a daily walk for a few months will not only be one less thing that they have to think about, but the dog will be able to get its energy and stress out. Giving the pup some happy moments each day is good for everyone. Include them. The abandonment of the grieving, particularly those who have just lost their partner or child, is something that collectively as a society we should all be ashamed of. And it happens so damn often. Just because you don't know what to say or do around your friend whose partner has just died isn't an excuse to not show up at all. The mere fact that I have to state that is absurd. A common example, a supposedly close friend group made up of a bunch of couples. One person's partner dies and suddenly all those other people piss off. The occasional text message of, "We're here if you need us," which quite frankly means squat. And when the group decides to get together as they usually would, they don't invite the recently widowed person. Now they of course say to each other, "Oh well, they wouldn't want to be around other couples at this time." Oh, so considerate of you. No, you don't want them to come because you think they will be a buzzkill. By not inviting them, you're not even giving them the choice. You are saying, well, our lives go on and we don't want to wait until you're happy again. So what should you do? Invite them, like usual when you go out. Yes, they may say no, but at least they know that you're still thinking of them, that you still consider them part of the group. Why is that difficult to understand? Or perhaps you and your buddies are the type of blokes that a couple times a month you'll get together, go have a meal at the pub and have the occasional game of golf or go to an AFL game. Now, your mate who's lost his partner or a kid a month or two ago may agree to come with. He knows he needs to get out, even if he's not really feeling like it. So you go out to the pub and he's a lot quieter than usual. That's okay. He may not want to talk about his loss. He's probably been talking about a lot with his family. He just wants the normalcy that we said earlier, and that is what you lot are providing. So as mates, you've done the right thing by including him and being there with him. And even though he's not the life of the party, just being around his mates will mean everything in that moment. Silence. So many people hate sitting in silence. They feel the need to fill it by talking or cracking jokes. If you are supporting someone in grief, you are gonna have to get over that. Sitting in silence is not doing nothing. You are physically present with someone. You have shown up. Sometimes when someone is so overwhelmed they can't access the conversation part of their brain, or they just don't have the energy, particularly the energy to laugh at your unfunny jokes. Ironically, it's during this silence that a lot of substantial things will be said about how they're feeling about the situation, and that is so important. Sitting out on the porch, having a coffee in silence, or watching reruns of their favorite sitcom in silence with them is actually being very supportive. Don't encourage big decisions. Never make big decisions during your initial grief. Grief can cloud your judgment, leading to impulsive or regrettable choices that might not end well. As a loved one, you may be seeing them wanting to make a big change and mistake that for a good thing like you've seen in the movies. And I get it, you want to support them, and you feel in order to do that, you should encourage them like you would any other time. But in those first few months, be very wary of your grieving loved one wanting to sell the house, go on a sudden unplanned trip, pull their kids out of school to suddenly homeschool them, quit their job, buy a 10-foot dragon sculpture when they live in an apartment. You get the idea. For most people, it's obviously not going to be their place to say outright, no, you can't do that. But you should probably be saying something like, that sounds like a bad idea. How about we sit on that for a few months and reassess later? Keep the toxic positivity to yourself. Everything happens for a reason. They are in a better place, and all those other irritating little bumper sticker sayings are actually quite insulting a lot of the time and just deflect any actual emotion. We have an entire video on what not to say to a grieving person and why. So if you're unsure why these statements are so unhelpful, go and check that one out. But yeah, as a good rule of thumb, if it sounds like a bumper sticker, don't say it. Go with your gut. This is more of a heads up. Obviously, when someone is deep in initial grief, there's a lot going on for them. And one side effect of all this can be lowering of impulse control. So if you are around your mate or your loved one during this time, trust your gut, because everything can be going completely fine and suddenly shit hits the fan. Giving into that impulsive thought becomes more likely. Your mate may attempt to exit a moving car and have no idea why. Your quick reactions may be what saves them. Now, I can't tell you what it might be. They may be looking at something in an odd way. They may have been quiet too long, whatever it is. But if something seems off and your gut is screaming that something is not right, even if they are in the same room, check it out and intervene or redirect if necessary. Covering life's basics. Sometimes it's the small things in this situation that you need to look out for. For example, you may notice that your mate has been staring into space a lot. They are probably overwhelmed, and a bit of this is actually helping their brain have some downtime. But if you notice them doing it a lot, or they are doing it for a very long time to the point that their eye health may be a bit in danger, just give them a light tap. Literally, just tap them on the shoulder to reground them. Other basic tasks like eating or hygiene may go by the wayside. Say your friend obviously hasn't showered for a few days and you don't want them thinking that you think they aren't a functional human being, so don't say, seriously, don't you think it's time you had a shower? Because, yeah, it won't go over well. Instead, say something like, hey, I'll look after the kids while you go have a shower if you want. Similarly, if they have kids and you look in the bin and there are 6 empty boxes of chicken nuggets, that's probably your cue to say, hey, how about I make my famous lasagna? Don't get defensive. Say your daughter's husband has just died, leaving her and her 2 young children. You, being her parents, go and stay with her for a few weeks. That few weeks is not going to be smooth sailing, because most people, despite how in distress they are, will hold things in, not yell or lash out or do something socially unacceptable that may hurt others. But in doing so, like a volcano, it will come out somewhere. And it's probably going to be directed at you because you are their most trusted person. They may scream that you're doing the wrong thing with the kids, that they don't need you to remind them about a doctor's appointment or whatever it is you're doing to try and help. But throwing your hands up in the air and saying, well, I just won't do anything, isn't appropriate. Just as you may crack a joke with your mate in an attempt to lighten the mood and he snaps saying it's not funny, don't take it personally. A simple, sorry mate, my bad is the way to go. Remember, when you're overwhelmed, you haven't slept, you're scared about the future and you feel like your heart's been ripped out, you're not in a great mood. You're going to be irritable. Now, of course, there are limits to the lashing out that can be forgiven in this instance, but generally speaking, be aware that it's not personal, so don't get defensive. For the co-workers. If a person is coming back to the workplace of their own accord during the first month of grief, there is a good chance that they are using work to get their mind off the situation. And this is fine to a certain extent. But most people will be coming back during this time frame because they are at risk of losing their job if they don't. So things to keep in mind are that grief impacts your ability to focus, remember things, and keep motivated. Now is very much not the time to put them on a big new project. That would be bad for them and bad for business. If possible, encourage breaks, offer flexible hours or a lighter workload. Be mindful of triggers because certain conversations, jokes, or holidays might hit differently now. Like we said earlier, continue inviting them out for post-work drinks if that's an enjoyable part of your work culture. Don't walk on eggshells around them. They are your co-worker. Work with them. So I hope this gives you some ideas of where to go and what to do in this situation. The most important part is actually showing up for the person and continuing to show up for them. Grief doesn't go away. You simply adjust to a new normal, and adjustment takes time on all levels. If you are in this situation and you don't know how to support your friend or loved one, you can always book a consult with us to work it out. The link to our website, as always, is in the description. And with that, go talk death.